Hello there, this is Caleb Jones, and this is the Alpha Male 2.0 podcast. And if you're watching the video version, you can see I am in my temporary office in the collapsing USA. And I am Caleb Jones. I make a high six-figure income. Maybe I make more than that. Maybe not. But I'll say I make a high six-figure income, location-independent income, while dating multiple attractive women. And I teach men like you how to do the same thing. And just so you are aware, this is one of two podcasts I do. I do a second podcast every week, just like this one, called the Sovereign CEO Podcast, where I cover location-independent income, business skills, 5 flags, international lifestyle, residencies, things like that. So if you want to subscribe to that one, you should go to calebjones.com and click podcast, and you will see all the different podcast mediums, all the anti-free speech American podcast mediums that we are on, and you can listen to that podcast in addition to this podcast. No reason you shouldn't listen to both. Why not? I mean, I do them. You might as well listen to them. This podcast today is focused on a very specific and particular type of man, and that is you if you are currently going through a divorce. Now, when I say divorce, that can also mean if you haven't had a live-in relationship, a long-term live-in relationship with a woman whom you are not legally married to, and you are now in the process of moving out, or you have just recently moved out, or she has recently left. I classify that also as a quote-unquote divorce. If you are not in that category, you can listen carefully, because maybe you're not going through a divorce, maybe you're going through a breakup, or maybe you recently experienced a breakup. So there will be some content in this podcast for you as well. I am an expert in this topic, literally. I have gone through a divorce myself, and that was a long, long time ago. It's not something to really think about anymore. 15, 16 years ago now, long time ago. And I was a very different man when it happened. But I went through a divorce. I went through all the same feelings that you have gone through and that you are going through now. I have coached with, counseled with, spoken with hundreds, literally hundreds of men who are going through a divorce right now, or have recently gone through a divorce or similar type breakup. And I've noticed a lot of similarities in the feelings that these men have and the emotional turmoil these men go through, including what I went through when I went through my divorce. And so if that's you, this podcast is for you today. It's specifically for you. I'm going to be talking to you today because I know you, I am you, I experienced what you went through at a very deep level. I completely understand what you're going through, and I've spoken with many men who have gone through what you are now going through. And so I'm going to address mostly the feelings. I don't usually talk about feelings. I'm not a really touchy-feely guy, but I'm going to talk through the feelings that you're having and help you put those feelings in context and help you get through this. Because fortunately, the good news is most of the feelings that you're feeling are either false or temporary. Usually they're just false. I'll go through that as we go along. I understand that when you go through a divorce, and again, when I say divorce, that can mean big breakup with a live-in relationship or something similar, okay? I understand that going through that can be, for many men, the most difficult experience of your life. I understand that. It wasn't my most difficult experience, I don't think. I've had a lot of difficult experiences in my life. It was painful, I hated it, but I understand how painful it is for men. I have personal friends who have been emotionally devastated by going through a divorce. One in particular, I may have mentioned him before, I don't remember. I have a lot of friends who go through divorce because long-term monogamy doesn't work. Divorce is part of the plan when you get long-term monogamous. So when you get long-term monogamous, you should basically plan on getting divorced, because that's the deal nowadays in the Western world. But anyway, had a guy, good guy, close friend of mine, older guy, much older than me. Years ago, he got divorced. He was a successful business owner, had 2 kids in high school, college, and married to a very beautiful woman, really cool, classy woman. And when he went through his divorce, he basically said, Caleb, this has destroyed my life because this is how I identify myself. I identify myself as a husband and as a father and as a successful husband, father, not financially successful, but successful as a husband, successful as a father. He goes, this has been my identity. This is my identity. And now that identity is gone. And it crushed him. And he never fully recovered. I know several men like this. My dad, who went through a divorce with my mom, 5-6 years ago in his 70s. I don't think he is fully recovered. I think, matter of fact, I know that. He's not fully recovered, and he probably never will fully recover from this. I could give you many, many examples of men who never fully recover. So I know how serious this is, especially considering I went through this myself. Now, I fully recovered. I'm more than fully recovered, but I still went through all those same feelings. And I'm going to go through, just in no particular order here, just kind of off the top of my head, the feelings that I know you're going through right now as a man going through a divorce, and we'll address these feelings. So the first feeling is a feeling of failure. And you believe, I certainly had this feeling, I know a lot of guys have this feeling, that you have failed. As a matter of fact, one of the biggest reasons, I would say the biggest reason, that I didn't get my divorce as soon as I should have, by the way, that's a maxim. Most divorces happen many years after they should have occurred. The vast majority of divorces should have occurred a year prior, 3 years prior, 5 years prior, 10 years prior, 8 years. I remember going on a first date with a woman years ago, and I said, yeah, my divorce should have happened at least 3 years before it actually happened. And she said, mine should have happened 8 years prior to it. I mean, we had one, she was married 9 years. So I had one good year and then literally 8 years. I wasted 8 years of my life. And the reason I did that, I didn't want to hurt my kids. That's always in there too, but we'll discuss that too. But the primary reason was that I didn't want to be a failure. I'm a successful, badass guy. I even thought of that sort of, I had those feelings even when I was a beta male. I'm like, well, I'm a successful person. I know what I'm doing and I'm smart and I don't fail. So I'm not going to, this marriage is not going to fail because I don't fail. And so it was very hard for me to acknowledge that the marriage had quote unquote failed and resulted in a divorce. It was hard for me. It's hard. Emotionally, it was difficult for me. And so going through this, you probably feel like you're a failure. Let me address that. You're not a failure. You're normal. Okay? You're not a failure. You're healthy. What have I said 1,000 times? Long-term monogamy doesn't work. You were never designed for long-term sexual monogamy with one person for the rest of your life. You were never designed for this. And the odds are overwhelming that this marriage or relationship that has now failed, or ended, I should say, was monogamous. Right? Right. Here's the example I've used in the past. One of the greatest cars ever made is the Ferrari, right? It's an amazing car. It's an amazing machine on every level. Would you use your Ferrari to tow your trailer? No. So if you use your Ferrari to tow a big trailer and you fucked up the Ferrari, which you would do, does that mean the Ferrari failed? No. Ferrari didn't fail. You were using the Ferrari for something it was never designed to do. Therefore, it didn't fail. You were just an idiot by using your Ferrari to tow your trailer. So the fact that you are going through a divorce now isn't because you failed. You were an idiot when you were young. I was too. I was 25 when I got into my first monogamous marriage. You were an idiot, or you succumbed to societal programming, or you were lazy. One of those three things, by the way, that's why men get into monogamous marriages. You're either stupid, you were lazy, or you bought into societal brainwashing. One of those three reasons, okay? And so you tried to do something you were never designed to do. You were never designed to be sexually monogamous with one woman for the next 57 years of your life. You were never designed to do this. Your body was not designed for this. Your physiology was not designed for this. Your dick was not designed for this. Your brain was not designed for this. Your mind, your psychology was not designed for any of this. So you didn't fail. You just got the result that is very expected. The relationship ended because you engaged in a relationship you were never designed to have. That's not failure. Okay? I know it feels like failure. I understand this. I went through those feelings myself. It's not failure. You didn't fail. You didn't. You didn't fail. You just tried something that was essentially impossible. Now, I'm not saying literally impossible. There's a small category of men who can pull this off, but they have very weird personalities, and they don't apply to you or me. I've said this before. The type of man who can literally be monogamous to one woman for 57 years is a very unusual, boring, low-key, average intelligence, average guy, very rare. It's like 8% of men. It's very unusual. So that's not you, and that's certainly not me, and that's okay. That's something you should brag about. That's a good thing. Now, let's extend that out. You didn't fail your children either. So that's the next piece of this is I failed my children. I'm a bad father. No, wrong. I will tell you for a fact that my kids were happier post-divorce from their mom than they were during the marriage. I've told this story before. I would be home in my home office, and my daughter, who was very little at the time, 7 years old, 6 years old, she would come into my office screaming, crying, tears, gushing down her face, scared, her hands shaking. She would run in, and I would say, "What's wrong?" And she said, "Mom is smashing pans in the kitchen again," because she was angry at me, her mom. Now, magically, like magic, once the divorce occurred and things settled down, her mom no longer smashed pans in the kitchen anymore. Now, I'm not saying her mom was happy, but I'm saying that there was no more of this traumatic stuff anymore because the divorce ended the trauma. Now, was the divorce trauma for my kids? Yes. Yes. And the fact that your kids have to go through this is trauma. You're right. That part is true. But going forward after the trauma, their lives now have much better odds of being better going forward in their lives long term than they ever did when you were with their mother, if you have kids, than when you were with their mother arguing or being sexually repressed or being angry or resentful. Kids pick up on that really fast. Matter of fact, way back in that marriage, one of my rules, my few rules for her and I was we don't argue in front of the kids. And because she would get very angry and raise her voice, and I don't want my kids seeing that stuff. And so what we'd have to do is go out in the garage. But the problem is she was so mad and she would get so angry and raise her voice, the kids could easily hear it through the garage door, so it didn't really help. So there you go. So now that you are divorced, if you have kids, now if you don't have kids, you can skip this part, but now that you are divorced and you have kids, I promise you, your kids now have a basis for a happier, or at least in worst case scenario, less bad life, because they don't have to watch you and their mother scream at each other anymore or walk around angry and resentful with each other, which kids feel. Now that of course assumes that you're not going to argue with your ex-wife, okay, or your baby mama going forward. That's an Alpha Male 2.0 maxim. You don't do that, but that's topic for another time beyond the scope of this podcast. I mean, I can only speak for myself. My kids are both extraordinary. I have two extraordinary children. They went through a divorce. Matter of fact, my son went through 2 divorces in a way. He was very little for his biological father, but he's an extraordinary person today. He's extraordinary. Are my kids perfect? No, I'm not perfect, but they're extraordinary. So it worked. Does that mean I am a perfect father? No. No. Done a lot of things wrong. But on the overall, I've been pretty good. And I was able to be better once I didn't have the burden of living with their mom. You see how this works? So you're not a failure as a father. You're certainly not a failure as a husband. See my point? Now, the next thing. This is a problem I did not have. I had the opposite feeling about this, but a lot of you will have this feeling of, especially if the marriage was shorter, smaller number of years. My wife, ex-girlfriend is amazing, and I will never find someone like this ever again. I did not feel that way when I got divorced. I was more like, thank God, I can find someone good now. So I was the opposite. So maybe you're thinking that. But if you have, and the odds are good you have this, one-itis or feelings still for your ex-wife or ex-girlfriend, I want to tell you something, and this is a very big topic. I've discussed this a lot in my blogs and books, so I'm not going to go into detail about this because it would change this podcast to something very different. No matter how amazing a woman is, there is always another woman around the corner, and that's figurative, but sometimes it's literal, around the corner who is just as good looking, just as smart, just as fun, and just as amazing as her, who will like you the same or more. That's a fact. There are 3.5 billion women on Earth. Okay, there you go. Now, sometimes nerds say, well, that doesn't matter because you don't live in a city with 3.5 billion women. Okay, as I've talked about in my live seminars, do the math. I mean, I'll run through this really quick. If you've been to one of my live seminars, you'll be familiar with this. Go on Wikipedia and look at the metro population area of your region, your town. So if you live in, you live in San Diego, California, go on Wikipedia and look at not how many people live in the San Diego city zone, but in the entire metro area. It's going to be several million people, okay? Half of those people are women. So it's going to be millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of women. Now let's assume, and I'm being very nice about this, but let's assume that 90% of those women are women you'd never have sex with. They're too old or too young or too fat or too married or what have you. So take 10% of that half figure, you will come up with hundreds of thousands of women within, easy driving distance of your home. I promise you, statistically speaking, and I'm right, there are not just one, many women in your local area who are as good or better than your ex-wife or ex-girlfriend. And without her problems. So my wife today is orders of magnitude better than my first wife. Nothing against my first wife. She's a wonderful person. But my wife, in terms of her relationship with me, how good looking she is, our sexual compatibility, our daily interactions with each other, her level of happiness, our level of compatibility, our level of how complementary we are, and how we're simpatico going forward in our lives, is superior in all of those areas than the first woman I was married to. In all those areas, in all of them, literally in all of them. Matter of fact, I'll be super honest with you, the only area in which Pink Firefly is not superior to my first wife is that Pink Firefly is not as domesticated as my first wife. My first wife was a very good cook. She was very skilled in the kitchen and she could make these amazing meals, and that's why I gained a bunch of weight when I was with her. Pink Firefly cooks. Matter of fact, right now she's cooking for me almost every day, so she does cook, but she doesn't have that natural knack that my first wife had. Other than that one item, Pink Firefly is superior, far superior in every other area, across the board. So it would have been silly for me to think during my divorce, I will never find someone this good. That's pure irrationality. Now, as I've talked about in my books, you are a man, and unfortunately you have some obsolete biological wiring that compels you to have one-itis for a woman. And I know this is easier said than done. I'm just trying to give you some context for these feelings. You will, I know for a fact, you will find a woman who is better than her. And you will probably find her, in my experience, by anecdotal experience, but I have a lot of it because I've talked to thousands of men about this stuff, you will probably find her sooner than you think, okay? So these feelings of, I'll never find someone this good, she's so perfect and amazing, and totally wrong. Objectively, factually, completely wrong, wrong across the board, okay? Okay. And again, I know I'm being very logical about this, but I'm right, okay? Next feeling, and this is a big one, and I wrestled with this myself. A lot of you have wrestled with this. I've spoken to a lot of guys who have really wrestled with this, guys who are going through a divorce or recently out of a divorce or recently out of a long-term monogamous relationship. And this is kind of strange. And this is kind of, when you get this solved, it's kind of exciting. And that is the thought that, and I've mentioned this once or twice before, when you are in a long-term monogamous relationship with a woman and the relationship is now over, you forget that you are attractive to women. You forget this. You completely lose that part of your being. And so men, when they go through a divorce and they go back into the dating world, their self-esteem in terms of their attractiveness to women is just rock bottom, because that entire part of their being, this is why monogamy is so terrible and insidious and awful. The entire part of that being, when they were dating and single, oh yeah, women like me, or this type of woman likes me, that's gone. And so they go out back into the dating market with these horribly low self-esteems about how they're not attractive, no woman will ever like me, I'm ugly, I'm old, I'm fat, I don't know how to dress, I don't look like Brad Pitt, and why would any woman want to date me? Why would any younger woman possibly want to date me unless I paid her thousands of dollars? They have all these thoughts. I had those thoughts, okay? And I know you're probably wrestling with that thought too. Why would any woman date me? Why would any cute girl date me? Why would any attractive woman kiss me? Why would they? The reason you think this way is because you've been in a long-term monogamous relationship where that part of your psyche has been, what's the word? Not destroyed, but it's atrophied. You didn't think that way when you first got married to her, when you're first dating your woman who was your ex-wife, right? You didn't think any of that. You're like, cool. Women, matter of fact, if you're like a lot of young guys, you're probably the opposite. Oh yeah, I'm great. Women think I'm hot, right? Probably the opposite. Let me tell you something. Okay, you ready for this? It's truth. I can tell you this for a fact, because I've talked to a lot of guys about this, going through the same problem. You are attractive. Women are going to think you're attractive. Physically attractive and your personality, both. Even if you're old, even if you have a little gray hair, like I do right now, haven't dyed my hair in a while, so you can kind of see if you're watching the video version of this. This is what my gray hair looks like on the sides of my head. Need to get my hair dyed. Just don't really give a shit lately, but even if you have gray hair, even if you're a little overweight like Big Daddy Caleb, Okay, even if you're not tall, if you're 5'9", even if women are going to find you attractive, they will, I promise. And the faster you get out into the dating world, for FBs only, I'll discuss that in a second. The faster you get out there, the sooner you're going to realize this. And you will have the experience that many men have, many divorced men have. I had this experience where you're going to go on a first date, right? You might go on a few first dates. You go on a first date with someone who's really cute, maybe a younger woman or a woman you think is really hot, and she will totally like you. And you'll be like, wow, women like me. I remember, I'll tell you my experience. I remember this vividly right after my divorce, 2007. So let's see, my divorce was February 2007. This was probably March or April 2007. I just started going on the dating sites. I really had no system down yet, floundering around, doing a lot of things wrong. Total moron, 10 years out of practice in terms of dating. And I think this was the first date I went on, maybe fourth, was a woman, I forget her name. I still remember her picture though. I remember how she looks. Hot, blonde. She was in her late 20s. I was 35, 36 at the time. So much younger than I was used to, because prior to me being single in my early 20s, I only dated older women. Very pretty, big blue eyes, just hot. And we met at a bookstore coffee shop. And the whole date, she was leaning forward and looking at me and nodding and asking me questions. And I could see through her body language, even though I was a moron and didn't know much about dating. I'm like, oh, I think she likes me. This is weird. And she's really hot and she still likes me. Why would a girl like me? I'm overweight. I'm a dumb beta male dad. And I have all those same divorced guy feelings. And we left, we walked out on the sidewalk and she had to go to her car to go to my car. And she said, when I said goodbye, it's hard to describe this if you're watching this. It's hard even to show you if you're watching the video. She was shorter than me, of course. And so she raised her head and looked up at me and kind of pursed her lips a little bit. And she started bouncing up and down on her toes. She wanted to kiss me. And she was excited to kiss me. Now, I've experienced this hundreds of times since then, but this was the first time post-divorce. And I remember thinking, wait, she wants to kiss me. She wants to kiss me? Why does a hot woman want to kiss me? What the fuck? I remember having those feelings. And I kissed her. I shouldn't have. Don't kiss on the first date. Topic for another time. And I walked away kind of in a daze. I'm like, wow, she likes me. She's attracted to me. I guess women do like me. And you will go through that same experience, assuming you get back out there and get back on the horse and get laid. So let me finish with that, okay? Right now you're thinking this, but you'll realize very quickly you are attractive. Even if you have flaws in your appearance, women don't require perfect appearance from men. Men require perfect appearance from women, but women don't require perfect appearance from men, despite what these guys say about Instagram. They don't. I mean, I'm an example of this. You see the video, right? Do I look really good? Am I gorgeous? No. So the way you get there is that you need to get laid. Rule number one of going through a divorce, maybe not rule number one, but one of the top 5 rules. I should come up with like the top 5 rules for going through a divorce. That'd be a good idea for a future podcast or a future video maybe. But one of the top 5 rules is go get laid. If you just sit there by yourself in your little studio apartment as you're going through your divorce, pining away about what a failure you are and missing your ex-wife and jerking off to porn, that's gonna make this all worse. And it's gonna take all these feelings I'm talking about, all these negative feelings, and exacerbate them. You need to get your ass out there, dating sites, day game, night game, social circle, I don't care, pick the one you like and go for that, and get back on the horse and start getting laid. Now, very important point. I said get laid, I didn't say date. So here's the next rule. I've talked about this before. Well, maybe not publicly. I've talked about this when I coach guys. No MLTRs for at least a year. No dating for at least a year. FBs. FBs. When you're going through a divorce, the name of the game is FBs. Get laid. And focus on what you're attracted to physically. Okay, whatever you like physically, don't worry about looking for the perfect woman and, low drama. Worry about that shit later when you're through the divorce. Right now, focus on what you're attracted to physically because that's what you didn't get during the marriage, right? Okay, right? Especially if you were traditionally monogamously married. I'm sure she's older and fatter and has shorter hair and right, okay, we all went through that. Go get laid. FBs, and make sure they're cute, okay? If you are an older guy, you have more financial resources, sugar daddy game is an option. That's fine. FBs, go get laid. Start having sex again. I mean, I could do an entire podcast on getting back out there as a divorced guy. Maybe I could do that too. If you guys are interested, let me know. Go out there and get laid, but don't date. No MLTRs, no dating, no falling in love, no serious relationships for at least a year. Now, why do I say a year? In my extensive experience in working with divorced men, you will not be 100% for a year. You're going to be a little off in all the areas of your life for about a year. You're going to be off. Your work is going to be a little off. Your physical fitness is going to be a little off. Your dating's going to be a little off. You emotionally, you'll be a little off for about a year, particularly if you have children, but even if you don't. You're going to be off for about a year. You're not going to be yourself for about a year. The good news is for most men, it only takes a year. After a year, you're good to go. You can get right back into it. Work on your mission, your goals. If you want to start dating women again, MLTR, fine. OLTR, slowly maybe. But just plan on the next year of your life being a little off, and that is normal and okay. I was a little off for about a year. It took me about a year. And I've seen that's pretty typical of most men. There are some rare men, unusual men, where it takes 2 years or 3 years. Hopefully that won't be you. Most guys, it's about a year. Okay? So just plan on that, and that is normal and natural. It's part of the process. Last thing I will leave you with. If this marriage or relationship was monogamous, I hope you fucking learned your lesson and you'll never do this again. Okay? Don't ever do this again. Don't ever get monogamous again. You want to go through this again? You want to do what most guys do, including alpha males? Flounder around, date around, then find the next woman who is, quote, not like the rest, and then get monogamous with her, and then go through another divorce, another 5, 6, 7 years down the road. You want to do that again and again and again and again like most men? Don't. Non-monogamy. My marriage, one of the reasons my marriage today is so amazing is because it's not monogamous. It's an OLTR marriage where I have separate finances that are protected in case of a divorce, and it's non-monogamous. I can still hook up with whoever I want whenever I want. Don't do this again. This should be a wake-up call for you to never be monogamous ever again. And the reason I'm saying this in this tone of voice is because usually for most men it's not. Even men who know my material. They date around, they non-monogamous for a while, and then they get complacent and lazy and they get monogamous again. And they go through the same shit again. Don't ever fucking do this again. Learn from this. Don't repeat this. What's the old saying? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And there's too many men in the world who know my material or material like mine, who know about monogamy not working, who still get monogamous and still have all the drama and problems and breakup and divorces again and again and again and again. And it's 100% their fault because they're morons. Don't do that. Cool? I'm not kidding. Don't do this again. You never have to go through this ever again. That's the good news. I have never experienced a bad breakup since my divorce 15 years ago. Literally. Not divorce, breakup, anything. The Alpha Male 2.0 doesn't have to experience these things. It's kind of nice. Cool? Cool. If you want me to expand upon any of the topics I covered in this podcast, certainly let me know. I'm happy to do that, and I will see you in the next podcast next week. Bye.